All right. So thank you, Miss Peggy. Of course, we'll continue and we'll start this session. I want to present you guys for the ones that don't know Miss Peggy Nolan. We appreciate having her on here, her session. Of course, as you start presenting Peggy, more people are going to be coming on, I'm sure. We're actually live as well, so we're on YouTube. So before we begin, Miss Peggy been a big leader in the space. She's been somebody that I've looked up to and followed for a little while. I know she's been doing this for a long time, and I know she has a lot of experience and a lot of key points and value to give you guys, the ones that are interested in the PCI space specifically. She has a lot of the experience to give you guys, and I really hope you guys get a lot out of this, out of what she has to teach you guys. And if you guys have any questions, of course, raise your hand. I'm sure Peggy wouldn't mind answer you guys' questions as we go through this session. Miss Peggy Nolan, go ahead and take over from here.
All right. Well, thank you, Kristen. Thank you for having me. And hello, everybody. First, let me just say, if you do have questions, it's okay to, if Kristen, you're monitoring the chat, correct?
Yes, I can monitor and you'll let you know.
Cool, because I don't monitor chat when I'm presenting. So if you see questions, just let me know. What I'm presenting tonight, for those of you who are new to PCI, or just want to dig a little bit deeper about running a PCI compliance program, I am presenting my 3 pillars of PCI excellence. This is something that my business partner, Lisa, and I firmly believe in, that when you build your PCI compliance program upon these 3 pillars, you can't lose. So let's go ahead and get started. The first pillar of excellence is automation. So we tell everybody to automate whenever and wherever you can. Automation is critical to having an effective and efficient PCI compliance program. So what sort of things can you automate? Well, let's check it out. Well, you can automate your critical controls. So what are your critical controls? It may vary from merchant to merchant, but by and large, the ones that are prominent in the Verizon payment card report that comes out just about every single year in September. The critical control areas are your configuration management, it is log management, it's vulnerability management, and it's a couple of other things. But the key point here is a lot of the tools that are used to monitor for vulnerabilities, the tools that are used for logging, the tools that are used for configuration management, they all have inherent reporting built into them. So as long as your inputs are accurate, you can pull the data through reports and automate quite a bit with the existing tool sets that you have. It may not look pretty, but that's okay as long as you can get the data, right? You can always make the data look better if you're presenting to upper management or senior leadership. You can, make an Excel spreadsheet, turn into pie charts and bar graphs if you need to. But a lot of these tools have that reporting already in it and may already have the graphs that you need to present. And it has the raw data that you need for evidence. I used to get my own evidence out of things like Tripwire, out of Splunk. I wrote my business partner and I wrote our own queries for Splunk to get all of the logging data that we needed for all of our in-scope assets. We also had tools that automated vulnerability management to do the reporting that we had to do for vulnerabilities, to prove that we had remediation in place and we did the things that we said we did. So those were all used during our report on compliance assessment period. You can automate key processes. Now, critical controls are a lot of key processes. Configuration management has a lot of, it's very process oriented, and you can automate some of those processes. You can automate some of your vulnerability management processes. You can, as long as you have repeatable processes, you can look at ways to automate them. And yes, you can even automate your PCI report on compliance or self-assessment. Lisa and I have done this. We have a lot of experience doing it. It is one of our core competency areas. And we have what we call PCI Compliance 365. It contains not just the DSS, the guidance, the intent of the requirement, but it also includes our knowledge base of working in PCI and doing a report on compliance every single year, sometimes twice a year, depending on what we had to do. It has our entire knowledge base. So it tells you that what we've built and what we can help you build is the requirements that are looped together that directly impact each other. So if you have a requirement that, say you have a vulnerability requirement that's not in place, you could also have 4 or 5 other requirements that are not in place because this one requirement isn't in place. So there's a cascading impact. And vice versa. If one requirement is in place, that could pretty much also mean 5 or 6 other requirements are in place because this one bigger one is in place. But we can help you automate your internal assessment and your report on compliance. This always doesn't make QSAs too happy when we show merchants how to do it themselves, but we can definitely help you if you are interested.
Peggy, quick question.
Yes.
So on a high level, what are some things that you see time and time again that you have to present in a ROC reporting compliance? And also, what's the difference between a ROC and an AOC for the ones that don't know?
Okay, so say the first question again. I didn't get part of it.
On a high level, what's normally on a report on compliance report overall that you see time and time again with companies you worked for in the past?
Okay, what's on a report on compliance or what mistakes companies are making? What do you?
Let's see mistakes, for example. What are some mistakes you see regularly?
The biggest mistake is organizations don't understand scope. And so if you miss on scope, you're going to miss on your assessment. It all starts with scope, and time again, it is, first of all, an end-to-end scope assessment is one of the more challenging things you can do. But you have to do it. It's now a requirement. 12.5.2 says you have to do it. In our, we have a course, how to manage your scope without losing your mind. We teach you our 6-step process on how to manage scope, and we walk you through even more mistakes that organizations make with scope. And one of the biggest mistakes that they make with scope is they forget about people and process. So people, process, and technologies are in scope for PCI-DSS compliance. And a lot of times organizations are leaving out people and processes, right? They get the assets down, right? They know what's going through their systems and what's connected to their systems, but they forget about people and processes. And what was the second question?
The next thing is the difference between AOC and a ROC on a high level. What are the main key differences and what's reported on an AOC versus a ROC?
Okay, so nothing is reported on an AOC. The AOC is simply your attestation of compliance. It's a one-pager where your QSA, or if you're doing a self-assessment, you're checking off the requirement areas that are in place. That's it. It's requirement area 1, 2, 3. It's not this granular level document. It's your attestation of compliance. Your report on compliance, you are being assessed against 350 plus requirements. And you have to have a QSA do it. If you're a level 1 merchant, or if your acquirer says you have to do a report on compliance. So the AOC is just the smaller document that says, that you've got your report on compliance or you've done your self-assessment. And that's generally what you submit to the acquirer, unless they ask for your assessment itself, which is, they absolutely can because they're your acquirer. But I never gave the report on compliance to anybody other than the acquirer. The AOC was used for when, say, there was a partner, or there was, a partnership my former company was looking for, and they would ask for the AOC, and that's what I would send them. Or they would try to ask for our report on compliance, and I'd say, no. You can have the AOC. Have a nice day.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Peggy, the AOC is something kind of like a certification saying, you know what, we went through a PCI assessment. Here's a proof of it, almost like saying, hey, if you're trying to work with a third party vendor and try to see like their SOX report, something similar to that, right?
It's just the attestation. I hate to use the word certification because it's an attestation of compliance. And I wish I had an example of it that I could like hold up for my screen. But it's signed off by the QSA. So it's accepted, you know, and it's what you have to ask for from your third-party vendors. You have to ask for their attestation of compliance. So it's a document that's signed off by the QSA. It's also signed off by whoever is responsible for your PCI compliance at your organization, like your CISO or CFO. You're welcome. All right. I think we can move on. Yes?
Miss Peggy, so would you say that the AOC is like a grade of the organization, so to speak? Like an A, B, or C grade?
No, because a report on compliance is all or nothing. It's not a grade. You have to get 100%, period. It's all or nothing. And that's when you get your your attestation of compliance. It's done in conjunction with a final report on compliance. And it's the document that you can, give to a potential, client, partner, whatever, whoever's asking it for it. And it's only good for a year.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Now I think I need to write a blog post, the difference between your report on compliance, a self-assessment, and an AOC. Look for that soon. Okay. All right. Our next pillar of PCI compliance is education. One of my awakenings when I first started in PCI way back in 2012 was not everybody understood PCI compliance in the organization. In fact, I would say nobody did. And even when I first took my role, I had a smattering of knowledge about PCI compliance. And I honestly believe that you don't know everything just by attending ISA training or PCIP training or even QSA training. You learn it by doing the job and working day in and day out with the PCI-DSS and all of the supporting documentation around the DSS. And it became part of what I did as a PCI ISA is I went on a crusade to educate everybody in my company that had a piece of the PCI pie. So I did it in my company with live workshops. So I made myself very accessible to all of the different teams. And it all started, believe it or not, with a team that wasn't even remotely associated with PCI. They were cybersecurity insurance underwriters. So they were underwriting policies for cybersecurity for other merchants, and they wanted to get smart about PCI so that they knew the right questions to ask when they were doing the underwriting. And so I did a whole training for them, and it was recorded, and it was met with such applause. They really appreciated it, that we were able to make that recording within my company available to other teams. So it started there. And then I decided that I was, again, going to continue my PCI Education Crusade by all of my stand-up meetings, my status meetings, they all started with something about PCI. And I always had reminders that, we're legally and contractually obligated to comply. We had a contract with the acquirer that said, you have to do this. And there was no getting out of it. It was a signed contract. So we were legally and contractually obligated. And I basically would say, and everybody here on this call is responsible for PCI DSS compliance. But then I would, go into scope or break down requirements or break down the assessment process or make myself available to all of the teams that had to have interviews and observations from the QSA during a report on compliance cycle. They sat with me before they sat with the QSA. So I would get them ready by doing mock interviews with them. And then when it came time for a real interview with the QSA, I was always in on those meetings, and the QSA had to follow exactly what I put in the meeting invite for the interview and the real-time observation. Some QSAs didn't like it, but I was like, look, if you stray outside of the bounds, we will do another call. We are sticking to what's in the meeting invite. So that became part of my education process. And at the end of my time at my former company, all of my teams who were responsible for PCI DSS understood what their requirements were inside out and backwards. They had their processes down. They had their evidence down. They had their interviews down. It was slick. We had a great program. So I was very proud of the people that were involved in the compliance program. And now I'm on a mission to educate as many people as I can about PCI DSS. And it's not teaching you about the what of PCI, because you can go out to the DSS. You can go out to the Security Council's website and download all kinds of documentation, but it's all about the what. I teach people the how to do this. So one of the ways that we teach people how to do this is we have our own learning center at Payment Card Assessments. We are actually shifting it to a brand new platform. And we're rebranding it as PCI Compliance 365 because compliance isn't once and done. It's not an annual event. It is ongoing. It's every day because requirements have frequencies. So hence the 365, right? It's an everyday thing. So we have all kinds of video training. We have guidebooks. We have templates that you can use, especially if you're running a compliance program at wherever you work. I honestly believe that if I had half of what we have out in our membership area, the first 2 years of my job would have been so much easier. So it would have been a lot easier. Then we also can provide one-on-one coaching. And you can always get in touch with me for that. And we'd be happy to help you out. We can also do corporate coaching and education for PCI. All you have to do is reach out to us. But I'm a firm believer that the more you know about PCI DSS compliance, the better it is for your organization. So the more you know how to do it, the easier it becomes. All right, before I move on to the third pillar, does anybody have any questions on the first two pillars, automation and education? Okay. All right. The third pillar of PCI compliance excellence is operate. So you have automate, educate, operate. So you want to be able to operate effectively and efficiently, and that means you are doing the right things well. So you want to be able to assess the maturity of your PCI DSS compliance program. And I'll be honest with you, if you're a level 2 merchant going into level 1, you're probably your maturity is probably around 0 unless you're running a really tight ship. And take your self-assessment as a level 2 merchant seriously. I'm running into level 2 merchants that don't have any documentation in place. They're kind of in a state of panic because they have to do real-time observations when they become a level 1 merchant. They don't even have up-to-date network diagrams or cardholder data flows. They don't have process narratives around anything. So being able to assess the maturity of your PCI-DSS compliance program comes first, right? You've got to be able to go in there and honestly look at everything, look under every single rock, look under any time you marked a box and said, yes, this is in place without getting the evidence to back it up. Get the evidence to see if the evidence matches your yes or you checked off in place, right? You want to be able to do that. And being able to assess the maturity of your compliance program, it really does start with scope. Do an end-to-end scope assessment, because I can guarantee you, if you're not a level 1 merchant, you probably have never done one. And that's where you're going to start. You want to be able to also gap assess key controls, or all of your controls. So whatever security controls you've placed around the requirements to make sure that your requirements are in place, you want to assess them to make sure that it's the right control and it's operating efficiently, meaning you're not wasting a lot of time trying to make sure it's operating effectively, right? Take logging for an example. You don't want to be hunting through haystacks of logs, looking for that one needle that says you have logging, you're logging successful logins on one asset, right? You want to make sure that you can get that information almost automatically through reporting or whatever have you. And then to operate effectively and efficiently, you want to be able to create repeatable processes, right? Because a lot of things that you do for PCI-DSS compliance, it's actually doing security or cybersecurity, whatever we're calling it these days. You want to make sure that what you do on Monday or what you do today is what you do tomorrow, right? You don't want to be reinventing the wheel just because a QSA is in there. So you want to make sure you have repeatable processes. And when you have repeatable processes, look at ways to automate them if you can. It's okay if you can't. There's some that you can't, maybe. But look for ways that you can gain a little bit more efficiency out of it without impacting integrity of the security control that you have around it. So it's always a fine balance, but it's very, very doable. It just takes, I like to say it's a profound sense of laziness that drives automation. I joke and tell people I was the laziest ISA ever. And it's not that I was lazy. It's just that who wants to go looking for log events in haystacks? You want to automate it so it's a lot easier to get the evidence that you need. So, but because we were a team of 2 when we needed 9, we automated out of necessity more than anything else. All right. So, and again, this is just kind of like, I don't want to beat the dead horse, but you want to implement an effective, efficient, continuous compliance program. That's where your operations comes in. And again, that is also part of our big wheelhouse of things that we can help organizations do, especially Lisa. She's got the eye on the automation and about making things effective and efficient. Me, I just teach people how to do things, but I'm also so big on automation, it's not funny. So we can definitely help with that as well. So those are the 3 pillars of PCI-DSS compliance as I see it. And when you build your program with automation, education, and effective and efficient operations in mind, you have that strong foundation that your PCI compliance program absolutely needs. Because if you're constantly fighting fire drills, right, that's not a strong compliance program. That's probably very frustrating and very stressful. So, and I can tell you, you don't need to add stress by having that kind of fire drill environment or culture. Does anybody have any questions, or would you like to talk about something a little bit different in the career space of PCI?
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Jerry. So you keep saying about automation. So do you have a program that you invented and created to use for your services, or there's program outside there that companies buy to be able to do automated for PCI?
So here's my 2 cents on the automation. So my business partner and I actually built our own automation at our former company. We built it in Jira. So Jira is a project management workflow tool. When we started our own business, we built it out in ClickUp. But what we're currently doing for one of our clients is building it out in ServiceNow. So most companies already have some sort of project management workflow tool. You don't need to buy a separate GRC tool. And to be honest with you, I have yet to meet a GRC tool that I like that handles PCI in a way that makes sense. So if your organization has a project management workflow tool, we can build out our knowledge base and build out your continuous compliance program within the existing project management workflow tool. You don't have to buy a separate tool, but you do have to pay for the knowledge base. That's about it. So we can build it out.
Geraldine, you have a question?
Yeah, that was my question. Let me put my hand down. Sorry.
If you're talking, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
How are you doing this evening? Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're welcome.
I have a quick question. What is the council doing or the merchants acquiring bank doing to educate small business merchants about PCI? Because it seems like they're not doing too well in understanding self-assessment questionnaires. So when you talk about education, what are they doing their part to educate the merchants?
So the council, again, like I said at the beginning when I started talking about education, the council teaches you what? They don't teach you how. But they teach they teach the what. They provide the what. They don't teach it. They don't teach it. They provide the what in all their documentation. So the DSS is part of the what. There's a few things for small businesses out there. There's a lot of small businesses that would just prefer to work with their acquirer, and they take their marching orders from whatever their acquirer tells them to do. However, we teach the how. So we teach small to medium, large businesses the how of PCI. So if you're a SAC P2PE, gosh, I wish everybody was a SAC P2PE. That's 22 requirements. We actually have done this for small businesses. Is we've taught them the how to do this, and we've helped them put templates together so that they're always doing their PCI compliance program, and they're not letting their documentation collect dust. They're not letting their evidence collect dust. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing with their POI devices, that sort of thing. They're doing the training for their employees the way that they're supposed to be doing it. We help them that way. It was very eye-opening to work with a few level 3 merchants, and they just didn't understand. They didn't understand the what or the how. So, yeah. And there used to be a small business interest group, or what do they call them? It was a SIG. It was a special interest group for SMBs. And I don't know if it's still ongoing within the council and the participating in associate participating organizations. But at one point they did have a small business SIG.
No. I
Yeah,
have
thank you.
Okay, son. Yeah. About what you said about small companies, I would think, by the way I'm looking into PCI, that as a small company, if I have a machine that go through the credit cards and I would think my provider for that will be in compliance, and I don't have to be micromanage them for all the things that they have to do. So I understand the small business saying, okay, I already hired this company. They taking all the credit cards, they give me my percentage, I pay them the percentage. I don't have to be following them. So how we can, like you said, explain to small companies that they also have to follow those companies, because they can get hacked also, and they can come to their this third party to get into them. So how how it will be the best way.
That's a great question. Be careful about the providers you use, because some providers have said that you don't have to worry about your PCI compliance if you use us. That is not true. You can outsource everything, but you're still beholden to, requirement 12.8 and its 5 sub-requirements are in every single SAQ and the DSS. And you have to do it if you're a level 1 merchant. That's all of your service provider stuff. And most small businesses don't know that they have to get that. They have to maintain a list of service providers. They have to have the attestation of compliance, or the service provider agrees to be assessed during the merchant's assessment. There needs to be a responsibility matrix so that you have a clear understanding of what responsibilities in the PCI-DSS that your provider is taking over for you. There's a lot that you need to do as a small business if you're processing payments or storing or transmitting.
And so there's a sense of responsibility that they have, even they hire this other company. So as a small company, I would say, no, I already hired this company. I don't need to do anything else, It is their responsibility.
Wow.
Okay.
No, there's I call it the SAQ alphabet. There is 9 or 10 different SAQs. So if you're an e-commerce provider, or you do everything over the phone, you can do a SAC A. Then there's also a version of the SAC A where you're a SAC EP, and I can't remember what the EP is. There's a SAC B, a SAC BIP, a SAC C, a SAC CVT, and then the SAC D. And the SAC D is just like the D. It's just like doing a report on compliance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shango?
Yes. Another quick question, Miss Peggy, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
It sounds like that a small merchant and an ISA as yourself should foster a good relationship with the acquirer, the
Sure.
acquiring bank.
Absolutely.
Who is that PCI person at the bank? Do they have a PCI guy there? Who is that person?
Your acquirer will have a compliance team. And I always made it a big point, over the course of 10 years at my former company. It was to cultivate a really good professional relationship with my PCI compliance peers at my acquirer. They, you know, when things go south, because things do go south, I had to have hard conversations with them and say, look, we've got a problem. We found it. This is our plan. We're not going to get the report on compliance in, and we're even going to use up our grace period and not, you know, the problem won't be fixed even with the extra 90 days. It's going to take us 8 months to fix what we discovered. My acquirer loved me. He says, you really take this seriously, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I do. So a good relationship, it's the difference between them not approving your project plan or, you know, advising the card brand to pass along fines or suspending fines. So I always thought it was in my best interest to have a good relationship with them.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody? Another one. Ah, this one. So if I want to go in the market of PCI, let's say I want to start looking. I know there are a bunch of positions online, but what would be your strategy if you started, like, you know, somebody like me and almost from zero? A small strategy that you will think you would be the best way, besides maybe going through different, you know, studying about compliance online and things like that. What best way you think somebody can start?
So no two people go into PCI compliance with the same experience level, right? I would ask you, what experience do you have right now? What experience do you have in information security or cybersecurity?
Just studying for GRC. That's the main thing that I'm doing right now. So taking courses online.
Do you have any work experience?
Swiping a credit card? I don't think so.
No. Do you have any work experience in the information security, cybersecurity space?
No.
Okay. Do you have any experience in the GRC space, auditing, billing, financials, anything like that?
And the HIPAA part, HIPAA compliance. I work with medical office, so I follow HIPAA compliance.
Do you just follow it or do you run the program?
I know I have to do it almost every day. Everything that I have to do for my patients, I have to make sure that the other offices are in compliance with the insurance to make sure that everything follows.
So on your resume, I would definitely highlight your HIPAA experience. And I'm going to be honest with you, most people don't know what to put down for a PCI compliance person, a job description, because they think they need a QSA, and they don't. Not at the merchant. QSAs don't work for merchants. And you can't ask to hire an ISA because as an ISA, you have to be sponsored by your company. So to run a PCI compliance program, the recommended requirements that the council has put out are at least 5 years of experience in IT security / cybersecurity, and or internal audit, those sorts of things. I came at it from an information security project management background. That's what I did for 25 years. I was this senior project manager. I ran, security projects, and they actually hired me as a contractor to come in and run the security projects that they were implementing to put the security controls and the tools around their cardholder data environment. So I became very intimately familiar with all the different security tools and running those projects. So I knew all of the people that were involved. And so when I saw the job description, I said, oh my God, I could do this in my sleep. I took it, and I said 3 months later, I was regretting it, but I'm joking. that's how I rolled into PCI compliance. Is I came from an IT security project management background. And I would say if your project management skills are top notch, that's going to bode well for any compliance role, any GRC role that you take on, is have a really good, solid project management skill set.
Thank you.
I hope that didn't scare anybody.
No, it's good.
I have a I have a question as well.
Yeah.
So I currently I had did a previous program with GRC and it kind of went over the what and not the how with the PCI. And then I ended up working for Spectrum Internet. And they paid for through MedCerts like my network plus. Um, I'm kind of like in the position right now of just breaking into tech, but GRC is what I got on my vision board, is what I want to end up at.
Sure.
Is there any way that makes sense for me to get into because the network plus is paid for free, so I'm like I might as well get that certification to understand, I guess, the technicalities of it. Is there a way I can transfer those skills from a network administrator to be in the GRC role, or do I need to focus on just the compliance part of things?
No. Because network administrators actually have a role in PCI compliance. If you look at requirement 1, it's all your network security controls. So if you're working in that area, what I would recommend is that you find out who's involved in PCI in the network administration team. Somebody is.
Okay. And
Somebody.
and one more thing, around this time, because I'm one of the people that kind of jumped in to cyber all over the place. Um, I'm going for my PMP as well. My PMP project management.
Yeah.
Is that still on a good track to go get that? Because I heard you say it, so I'm like, it sounds like, as far as being interpersonal and being able to construct a project together, and communication, and I guess the soft skills. And I just wanted to make sure, was I kind of like on a little that
Yeah.
GRC
Well,
qualities?
I actually don't call them soft skills. I call them power skills. Yeah. Communication power skill, not a soft power skill. So yes. So again, I spent 25 years as a project manager.
Okay.
And I ran security projects. That's what I did. Yeah, I was really good at doing that. And so when I took on the role of being the compliance program manager, one thing that you will realize is that PCI compliance isn't a single project, because a project is defined by a start date and an end date. A project or a program is always ongoing. I'd always treated the report on compliance as a project because it had a begin date and an end date. But the PCI continuous compliance program was a program. It wasn't a project. I didn't treat it like a project. It was every day, my job. That's what I did. I ran the PCI compliance program. And it was continuous. So you have to have really good PM skills to run a compliance program, period. It doesn't matter what compliance program you're running. If you don't have those power skills, I don't care how good of an auditor you are.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me, Miss Peggy?
I sure can.
All right. Good evening, guys. Thank you for being here. My question is, when you start a scope, what's something that there's something always missing on a scope that I guess you can teach us to, to look out? So, because something is always missing, what you think is always an error when you're scoping something in PCI?
Kind of funny. It's people and processes. So when you do a scope assessment, I'm going to give you the down low on it. The first thing is to reduce scope whenever and wherever possible, right? As
Gotcha.
all right.
Segmenting is what you're saying?
Segmenting is only one way to reduce scope. There's multiple ways to reduce scope, multiple ways. Segmenting is one. So you want to reduce scope whenever and wherever possible. The second step is to follow the money. So you have to follow the money through the things that are processing, storing, and transmitting cardholder data. Then you have to continue to follow the money because you need to bring in all the connected to systems, and connected to are the things that provide network segmentation, provide security, anything that could impact the security of the cardholder data environment. Those all come into scope now, right? Because they're touching. We called them guilty by association. And it doesn't matter why it's connected. It doesn't matter. If it's connected to, it's in scope. If it's storing, processing, or transmitting, or if it's built out in your cardholder data environment, it doesn't matter. It's in scope if it's in the CDE. So I actually once upon a time kicked out a technology out of the CDE, and I said, so why did you build your thing in here on this VLAN? That's my cardholder data environment VLAN. Why did you build that there? They said, well, just in case. And I said, just in case of what?
That's a back door.
Right? I said, just in case of what? And they're like, well, this is like the most safest place. And I said, great. So either go find a new VLAN to park your thing on, or this is what's going to happen to you. And I listed all of the controls that would be then layered upon what they built out on my ear, right? And they said, okay, we're going to go find a new VLAN. I said, see you later. Bye.
Yeah, because now they're gonna have to be compliant. Now they're gonna have to be either out of scope. It's just
Right. So that's the third step. The fourth step is you have to document everything. You have to document everything. You have to have your network diagrams documented. You have to have all your cardholder data flows documented. You have to have all your process narratives documented. You need to know who's responsible for what.
control owners.
Yeah, control owners, your subject matter experts, your system administrators, your call center agents who are processing payments over the phone. You have to have it all documented. All of it has to be documented. And then you need to start setting up checks on your scope, and you need to be checking your physical assets. I always say at least once a week. That's where you have automation in play because assets change on a regular basis.
Of course.
You may have to bring new servers into production. You have to decommission outdated servers, right? So you have a changeover in your assets all the time. And then you need an accurate asset list because your physical assets have a number of controls that have to be met. And there are teams that depend on an accurate asset inventory, which is 12.5.1, folks. All right. And then that's something that you want to check on a regular basis. I would say at least weekly is do a cross check on your physical assets. And then there's other things you want to check in with the people at least twice a year. You want to make sure that your network diagrams, depending on your environment, yes, you need to be looking at them at least once a year. But if you have a very dynamic environment, it may be more frequent than that. And the same thing with your cardholder data flows. It may be more frequent than once a year, right? So it's all going to depend on your environment. And we go over that in how to manage your scope without losing your mind. We do it. It's pretty in depth.
Perfect. And then I have another question as well. If let's say if I'm doing an interview for PCI, what tips do you have? I mean, so eventually we get hired. Like, what can we do and say in practice to shine for the interview? Are you looking more into your people skills? Some ways, I guess, just like you said, to the scope, understanding the scope. Like, what can we say and do and learn so we can shine in that interview?
Well, to shine in an interview, you really have to be in control of your own interview. They're going to ask you some questions, but you also have to be asking questions. One of the questions you may want to ask is, what is your most pressing problem with your PCI-DSS compliance program right now? What is your most pressing problem or challenge? That's a big one. Ask them. It's like when I prospect for clients. Let's see, where's my list? So that's one question you can ask them. You could ask them, what's changed in your cardholder data environment in the last 3 to 6 months? Do you have all of your documentation? Has all of your process documentation gone through an annual review? So those are the types of questions that you can ask, right? And then you can say, this is if depending on the conversation. I haven't gone for an interview since 2011, so things change, but they don't change, right? Ask them, what will happen if you don't take steps to fix your most urgent challenge? Ask them. So you can take control of the interview too. So it's a two-way street. You're not in the hot seat. They are too, because you want to make sure that you're a good, that's an organization you want to work for.
Okay. And there's any specific subject that we should incline more when it comes down to PCI?
No, because the person interviewing probably doesn't know a whole lot about PCI. They just want to know if you're going to help them fix it. And there is no one subject area. So you want to be able to be familiar with as a base level, what's requirement 1? Build a secure network. What's requirement 2? Configuration management. Requirement 3, protect data at rest. Requirement 4, protect data in transit. Requirement 5, it's the Microsoft rule, anti-malware. Requirement 6 is change management, it's remediation for viruses, and it's secure coding. Requirement 7, least privilege. Requirement 8, access controls, unique IDs and passwords, 2FA. Requirement 9 is all physical requirement 10 is logging, but it's also NTP. Requirement 11, vulnerability scanning, internal and external, ASV scanning, pen testing, IDS and IPS. Requirement 12, information security policy, acceptable use policy, your targeted risk analysis. Be familiar with that because that's a new requirement. Yeah. So it's your incident security plan and policy. It's your third-party service provider policies and requirements, right? So you want to be familiar with all of your requirements. You don't need to know every single one of them because that comes with working with the DSS. And as you can see, I can rattle it off pretty fast. And it just comes from working with it day in and day out. Right? You want to be able to show that you can help them fix their problem.
Ritu or Shango, when you guys have a question?
Okay, but I think Ritu was first.
Can you hear me?
And
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Hi, Peggy. My question for you is like, what are the most important things an entry-level candidate can do to prepare for the role in the PCI-DSS compliance? What are the qualities or certification the employers are typically looking for? As you mentioned to Caesar, that the requirements, you have to go through the requirements is the basic one. But besides that,
okay. So I'm just going to reiterate, I haven't interviewed for any job since 2011. Things change, but things don't change. And what I am seeing out there is that a lot of job descriptions don't really know what they need. So you need to make your resume stand out. If you have any experience in the GRC space, make that stand out. If you have experience in information technology, information security, cybersecurity, make that stand out. If you have previous PCI experience, obviously make that stand out on your resume, because your resume is the bait to get the interview. That's all it is. Once you're in for your interview, again, you want to have, go in there knowing, have a fairly conversational level of knowledge about PCI-DSS. Understand that scope always comes first. They bury it before version 4. It wasn't even a requirement. It was one of those subtle implied requirements, because all you have to do is look at the executive summary in the reporting template for a ROC and know that you have a whole bunch of things you need to do for scope. Now it's a requirement. 12.5.2 requires you to do a scope assessment at least once a year. So that's where you start with, and most organizations fall down on scope. They have no idea what to do a scope assessment. I've been doing scope assessments since 2013, so when we were still in version 2.
Got you.
Yeah. So that's important. But it's also super important when you're in the interview is to understand what's their most pressing problem with PCI compliance. And then it is to steer that conversation towards how you're going to help solve that problem.
Thank you, Maggie.
You're welcome.
So yeah, I think I have 2 quick questions for you, and I think I'm going to stop harassing you this evening.
You're fine.
Quick question. When a merchant is having problems meeting PCI requirements, they're having a problem meeting their compensating controls, they have a problem meeting their customized controls, and they call their
I'm gonna interrupt you right now. A merchant who's having problems with PCI will not be using a customized approach. That is only for merchants with a very mature, robust PCI compliance program.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that.
If you have a challenge meeting your compensating controls, you've got a problem. Right? Because your compensating control is supposed to meet a requirement or set of requirements because you can't meet the defined approach.
Right.
So you have a compensating control for that. So so it's more of a problem that's meeting the defined approach. That's why you have a compensating control. And again, a compensating control has to be above and beyond the defined approach. And I will tell you right now, compensating controls are not efficient. They're not sustainable. They're a pain. They're a PITA. They're a PITA. And you need to review them frequently to make sure that they're still working as advertised. So you have to have a lot more continuity around a compensating control as you would from a defined approach. So that I just wanted to make that clear. I didn't interrupt you either, but anytime somebody says the customized approach, my hair lights up.
Okay. I understand. I was just putting different merchants into one question. So if they can meet the compensating controls and they call the acquiring bank because the bank takes on the risk of the merchant, correct?
Yes, the acquirer is the only entity that can accept your risk.
Okay.
Even you can't meet a requirement.
Right. And you tell them, hey, I can't meet this customized controls I have in place. I can't meet it. I have this risk, and the bank don't take on the risk. What does the merchant do?
the merchant, so one, they're not going to use the customized approach, because if they can't meet the defined approach, there is no way in heck that they're going to use a customized approach for it. They're not mature enough. They have a compensating control, right? Compensating controls can, I know this sounds a little weird, it can be as easy as increasing the monitoring and alerting on a certain thing. Like if you have a shared password, we used to have a compensating control around a shared password because that's how the product worked. And we wrote up the compensating control because you're not supposed to have a shared account. So we wrote up the compensating control, which was the system administrator had half the password. The other half of it was in a vault. And so we had monitoring on the vault when the other half of the password had to be gotten. So we had a compensating control that was fine. If there's some reason you can't meet a defined requirement and you can't meet it with a compensating control, and then you know, there's going to be some background work that you have to do before you have a conversation with your acquirer, which is, what's the problem? What's the challenge? Is it, do we have a technology gap here? What's going on, right? So you're going to have to flesh that out and then have a solution, which is either going to be a new technology to meet the requirement, or you're going to figure out a way to have a compensating control for that requirement, or you're going to do some homework on risk and say, hey, this is going to be, you know, we've run this through our risk models. There's such a low probability of something happen, but you want to do your homework and then bring that homework to the acquirer and then let them make a decision.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. One more quick question. This is my second question. It's more of a personal question.
Okay.
What is it that I think I saw you in a video, and you talked about not allowing the job to consume you. What is it about PCI is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to PCI?
Other people? No. Um, so it's really hard to swim upstream all the time. And so when you have teams that are resistant to PCI compliance, that's a challenge. PCI compliance is only as successful as your senior leader sponsorship. So you want to make sure that you've got a C-level executive that's completely on board and knows what's at stake with PCI, and why it's important. So when you have the support from the top down, it's critical. I actually don't think meeting the requirements is the problem. It's getting people to write their documentation, which is, I think some people would rather have a root canal than write documentation. So it's another thing that we take care of, which is we have a lot of standard operating procedure templates that people can use. You just, you know, plug and play what your specific processes are for these SOPs, and we've got the SOP template ready to go. So, but yeah, resistance, you'll find a lot of resistance all around you as a PCI ISA. And a lot of times you're in a one deep spot as an ISA. You don't have a team of ISAs. You're at.
Jim, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Chris Hunter.
Yes.
I was on mute. Thank you. This was some great information, Peggy. But what are some steps you recommend that a person should do who's worked in IT? I worked in information technology, information security, where in various different capacities. How can someone with all that skills pivot into the PCI-DSS realm? Any tips? Any clues? I mean, not clues. Any tips? Any suggestions?
just keep applying to the open jobs, because having if you have that experience in IT security and technology, and you've got good people skills and good project management skills, or you have something else that you can bring to the table, I say go for it. Just keep applying, because your background in security is a huge help. If you have a background in risk or other compliance areas, that's also a big help. But when it comes to PCI, you have to be technical enough, right? You don't have to be wicked technical. Like, I don't know the ins and outs of all the firewalls, but I know what a bad firewall rule is. So, and I know that, firewalls and routers act as your basic traffic cops. But I can read a firewall rule and tell you if it's a good one or a bad one. But I don't know everything about firewalls. I don't know everything about encryption, and of all of this realms of security. Encryption is my weakest link. I don't need to know everything about encryption. There's certain things I need to know, like you need to have HTTPS, you need to use strong cryptography. So I know what to look for, but I don't need to know the math behind it. Okay? I'm never going to know the math behind it.
So be familiar with certain technologies. You don't need to have a PhD understanding of it.
Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Peggy. Hope I didn't ask this same question in multiple sessions, or ask the question that someone raised this time around.
No, it's actually, all the questions are great questions, and I get these questions frequently. So I'm now thinking that there's certain things I need to, go and write and have available for you guys.
Caesar.
Hey, Peggy. I'm gonna have like two questions, but this first one is more of a selfish one. What would you tell? So this happened to me. It's like a real scenario. What would you tell a system administrator? So it would be like a
Can't hear you. Did I lose you, Caesar? I can't hear Caesar. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can't hear Caesar though.
Caesar, you probably cut out. It's fine. While he fixes this thing, Chris or Olumai, do you guys want to continue?
Olamai was in front of me.
Okay. Thank you, Peggy, for your time on all this. Teaching.
Olumai.
You only hear me?
It sound muffled, or is that just my phone?
Sounds very muffled. Chris, you want to go? We'll come back.
Hold on, I'll let Christian go. Sounds like he back. Is he back online? Christian, you back?
Yeah, I'm back. It's when you.
Yeah. I'll go behind. I'll go last.
No, I'm asking you to say your question. I don't have questions.
Oh, my bad. I thought you. My bad. I thought I'm looking at Caesar. So just to reiterate, when you said, okay, of course, for one with multiple personnel, and I guess the thing is with a little hard headed, so to kind of make sure that sort of relationship of the value and the importance, the executive. So I go top down pretty much, because I was looking at YouTube videos as far as people that are in the PCI, and they were saying like it was good, but another side effect was, they said like if you're the type of person that wants stuff to get done immediately, it can be kind of annoying because you're kind of waiting for everyone to get on the same accord. Would you say that's true?
I solved that problem. All right.
Well,
Yeah, I solved that problem. Because I got, the first couple of years I was doing it, give everybody like 30 days. Once the task went out for their evidence, they'd get 30 days. And I'm like, man, this isn't working, because they're forgetting about it, or they're mad because they got a reminder or whatever. Right. I solved it when we went to a project management workflow tool, and I assigned a task, and I communicated this all the time. You have 5 business days. to return the evidence. A screenshot takes you all of what, 5 seconds? Maybe 5 minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes. You got to get into your management console and you need to take a screenshot of the configuration setting of X, Y, and Z.
Okay, I like that.
Okay. I gave everybody 5 business days. And I basically said, if you can't get this to me in 5 business days, you need to reassign it to somebody on your team who can. Period. And when the 5th day hit, if I didn't have the evidence, there was an email that went out to the system administrator and their manager. And let me tell you, the first time I pulled a report of who was overdue and I presented that in a status meeting, nobody was ever late.
I said, okay, thank you.
It was all professional. And I was just like, I'm not dealing with this. Because you know what? I used to tell people this, and I know I'm live streaming, but I would tell people I'm not your babysitter.
Caesar, you want to go again?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I have, I guess, two questions. So the first one is kind of more for me. It's a little selfish, but what would you say to a system administrator? Because this ended up happening to me. And he's like a seasoned system admin, but he was trying to tell me that as far as PCI goes, there are check boxes, just check boxes, right? But you and I know that that's not the case.
Correct.
What would be your rebuttal?
My rebuttal to that would be good luck. Can you assign this task to somebody else? It's not a checkbox. Compliance is a byproduct of good security. So, or great security. I mean, I once had somebody say PCI compliance is the least of my worries. Okay, fine. You still need to do this. I mean, I would just look at them and go, you still have to do this. We are legally and contractually obligated to comply with PCI-DSS compliance. That's it. And I said that all the time. I wanted to put a recording out that just had that. We are legally and contractually obligated to comply. And then I would joke around and say, resistance is futile. Compliance is the Borg. Sorry.
I like that one.
There's my one Star Trek reference of the night.
There you go. Yeah, I think this system admin in particular was just trying to belittle the process of an assessment. But my next question would be, for example, in the scenario that I've run, my assessment, and I think it'll still be the same for 2025, we're running a SAC P2PE. It minimizes the scope like heavy.
A lot. You have 22 requirements.
Right. And so that being said, how do I, kind of just to keep myself busy as well? Because I want PCI throughout the whole year, right? I want it in the back of my head. I want to be able to deal with certain things. Aside from documentation and, what is the requirement? 3, 9, and I believe 12
Oh.
for the SAC. Yeah. I mean, how do I keep myself busy where I'm like, I'm telling the VP of IT, the one that I report to, like, I'm doing these things throughout the year. I'm checking inventory. I'm, because for example, I have a review coming up and this would be something awesome to include in my review.
All right. So let me step into my SAC P2PE real quick. That's amazing. I've got one here. That's printed out. Where is it? So for your SAC P2PE, you want to be able to show or do some things. Do you have a project management workflow tool?
No. I mean, I've never asked it, but I've never used one though.
Do you have like
Do I have what?
Jira?
No, we don't use anything like that. This is kind of more, documentation within a SharePoint that I share and, things like that.
Okay. So a lot of your stuff, when I look at the P2PE, a lot of your stuff is going to be annual checks for the SAC P2PE. But you want to make sure that you have like 951 is kind of big, and we actually have a template for this, but we have a template for the entire P2PE. SAQ. So your thing that you do on a frequently, but do you train people on 9513?
Can you remind me of that one real quick? What that entails?
Training is provided for personnel in POI environments to be aware of attempted tampering or replacement of POI devices and includes, and then there's like 4 bullets.
Yep. I invented a whole training session for retail employees just for that specifically last year.
Okay. So, are they up for another training? Because you want to do that training all the time, right? Do you have your information security policy?
Yep.
Okay. Again, that's something that is reviewed annually. And then your security awareness education is ongoing, so you have to have an education program.
Correct. Yeah. And we have that set up within an LMS system. And so, yeah, within like 30 days of a retail employee being hired, that gets sent out to them.
Nice. And then all of your 12.8 requirements.
Yeah, they're all in place and they're all documented.
Okay. And you have an incident response plan. There's just not a lot in the P2PE.
Right. That's what I was thinking too. But which, I shouldn't be complaining, right? But
you don't have 350 requirements. You don't have logging. You don't have vulnerability assessments. You don't have ASV scans.
yeah. And it's interesting though, Peggy, within our organization, as far as the security posture, it's starting to get very mature. And so, we do ASV scans, vulnerability scans, controls that are not even on that P2PE. But I think even just being able to check those throughout the year and making sure everything's running smoothly, I think kind of helps out.
Yeah. And then, if you have other compliance programs that you have to meet, make yourself available to those teams.
Okay. Yeah.
Help them streamline their processes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
Cool. Then I
Well,
think we have a little time for a few more questions. I know, Peggy, how far you are. Olamide, you got a question?
Yes, I do. Can you all hear me now?
yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Christine, for putting this together as well. Christian, I have 2 questions. The first one will be, what's your advice for freshers who are looking to get into the PCI role concerning certification? Is it advisable we go get the PCIP, get certifications like CISA, or if you're good with your skills, you think that your skills alone are enough to get you a role in PCI?
So honestly, I didn't have any certifications when I got my role in PCI. You can't get an ISA certification unless you have a sponsoring organization. So you have to be working for a sponsoring company to get your ISA. So take that off the plate. The only certification you can get through the PCI Council on your own without a sponsor is your PCIP, but I would say don't do that. I'm a firm believer that your employer should pay for your certifications. Sorry, that could be very old school, but even my last employer paid for my certifications. So they paid for my CISA, they paid for my PCI ISA. So get experience more than anything. I would take somebody with 5 years of IT security experience over somebody who just had certs.
Okay, thank you. Then the second question would be, how is the PCI job aids in regards to when you come in as a PCI, like an ISA, or, are you expected to work with all the requirements, or you expected to be specific to some of the requirements? Of course, you have knowledge of all the requirements, but in the working environment, is there specific things you'll be doing regarding PCI? Like, okay, you'll be in charge of the network, requirement one, or you be in charge of access controls, or things like that.
So I was in charge of the entire PCI compliance program.
Okay.
That was one deep. So it was my job to train people on the network team to understand requirement one. It was my job to train people that were in configuration management and who built out the systems that went into the cardholder data environment. I had to teach them requirement two. I had to talk to and teach the people who built the applications that we had that did the the e-commerce stuff, how to do 3, how to do 4, how to do secure coding. I taught them what they were responsible for. So when you come into a PCI role, just know you probably won't have a team. You won't. I have yet to meet a company that actually I think I talked to the folks at PepsiCo, and they had a team of 3 ISAs. I was like the only company that I met that had a team of ISAs. And they were not broken up based on requirement. They were broken up based on regions. So in effect, even though they had 3 ISAs, one was responsible for Europe, one was responsible for North America, and one was responsible for South America. They were all in one deep positions, sort of, So you're going to be, so when you come in to PCI compliance, you're going to feel a lot like Atlas, and you're going to carry the world on your shoulders. That's how I felt most of the time, and I was always pushing the rock up a hill. This is just the truth.
All right. Thank you.
And I did it for 10 years. All right, Caesar.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Who else has a question?
Caesar, Ronald.
I don't have a question. I don't have a question, and I'm sorry that I haven't participated much because I'm driving.
Okay.
But I just want to tell you, you are absolutely kick-ass, and I absolutely love your personality and how you handle things. I want to be like you when I start working in cybersecurity.
Thank you so much. Feel free, go out to my website, paymentcardassessments.com, and just sign up for, we have a free masterclass on there that, what is it? Strengthen your PCI compliance program by avoiding these 5 big mistakes. So I would love to see you sign up.
So much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. I make PCI compliance with a dose of reality and a lot of humor. Ronald, did you have a question?
I don't know if you can hear us. We got time for another one or two.
I did. Can you guys hear me?
Sure can.
Hello. Oh, I have a question and a comment. First I'll start with my question. When you were speaking about scoping, when you were speaking about reducing scope, would hardening standards be considered a part of reducing your scope?
No,
Okay.
they're actual requirements.
Okay.
So you reduce scope in a number of ways. You reduce it through network segmentation. You reduce it by not storing cardholder data, period. Just stop it. And that removes most of requirement 3. You reduce it by using a hosted third-party payment page provider. You reduce it by using a DTMF technology if you're in a call center environment. There's a number of ways to descope. Like, for example, moving our membership area off of our website onto another platform that is not my website. I'm reducing my scope to 0. I'm letting the other platform handle the entirety of it. All I'm doing is throwing content on it.
Okay. Thank you for that. And my second is a comment. I follow you on LinkedIn, so I love all your posts that you make. And I just wanted to say thank you for coming here tonight because after hearing you speak, a lot of the things you spoke about, I'm already knowledgeable on. So you just confirmed that I'm okay and I'm going in the right direction because I've been on about 12 to 15 interviews. I have the right count on my PC. I'm just not in front of it right now. I'm driving. So I keep losing service. I keep losing you guys, but
It's okay.
I had about 12 or 15 interviews. I haven't landed my role yet, but hearing you speak tonight just lets me know I'm on the right track and I know a lot of information and I should be pretty well once I get in the industry. So thank you.
Yeah, you're gonna be fine, Ronald. Yeah, you really are. And literally start asking him when you're on your interviews, are you asking them what their biggest PCI compliance problem is?
Yes, I asked them that. I also tell them compliance isn't a one and done. It's an ongoing process to ensure compliance and mitigate risk. There's a lot of key points that I try to touch on to
Yep.
make them like me. I don't know if it's my personality that they don't like or whatever it is, but the knowledge part, I think I'm pretty sold up on. I just have to get them to like me, I guess. I don't know if that's what it is.
You sound like somebody I would want to work with.
Yeah, I had a big interview with a big oil company a couple months ago, and it was my third round, and I thought I was going to get the job. It went pretty well, and I got an email saying we're not going to move forward, and it just crushed me because I was like, what did I do wrong? I thought I did everything right. I answered every question. I had a good elevator pitch, and just I didn't get the role, but I know there's a role out there for me, and I'll eventually. land it, so.
There sure is. Did you follow up with them and just say, hey, by any chance, do you have any feedback?
I followed up with the recruiter, but he didn't respond, of course. I've only gotten one response from a recruiter when I asked the reason why. So I don't know. I guess they don't like to give the reason why.
No, you're gonna land a great job. I know you will. It's a numbers game. So for every 10 no's, you have to like get 10 no's before you get a yes. That's just like.
Well, I know Christian had his 20, so I'm approaching Christian's 20.
So it's just a numbers game. You hear a lot of no's before you get your yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. If you ever see me on your post on LinkedIn, that's me commenting.
All right. Awesome.
Well, guys, if anybody else has one last question for Peggy, it'd be great. But overall, Peggy, we appreciate your time, your effort, everything you've given us. We hope to connect with you again in the future.
No, absolutely.
And hope everybody here got some value from her, and anything you guys have questions for her, feel free to ask her. But we appreciate you guys' time. One last thing is this was live. It's on YouTube as well. So if you guys want to see it again, it's on our YouTube, and the ones that are part of our community can see it as well. So you guys feel free to watch it again. So if you guys have any other questions for Peggy, reach out to her. I put in her LinkedIn on here as well. We put in her website on here as well.
Awesome.
Any other questions you guys have for her before we let her go tonight?
Oh, Ronald looks like he has one more.
I think you put a heart.
I was
Oh,
asking, what's the $25 per month subscription? Did that provide with the training for beginners, with the actual rock and requirements, I guess, or real time type of training?
Okay, so the $25 a month one, it's actually turning into PCI Compliance Essentials on our new platform, which will be available, and it's going to have 4 courses plus the guidebooks that go with the courses. I think 2 of them have a guidebook that go with it. 2 of them don't. It's just training. So it's PCI 101. It is how to manage your scope, how to manage a report on compliance, decrypting the PCI-DSS requirements. So it's going to have those 4 courses in it, plus the guidebooks. It's going to be a one-time payment only, not a monthly subscription. And you will always have access to that membership area. So you'll always have access, but it's a one-time payment.
And we can upgrade whenever, say when we're done with that, we can upgrade whenever.
Yeah, and when you decide to upgrade, not only will you'll see the same content in there, but you're going to see so much more. Like right now, we've got like 13 courses in the premium, the pro plan. So, and we're adding more because we've already made a list of some of the training that we need to include that's not in there.
Thank you.
Miss Peggy, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I got a quick question just to make sure I heard right. So basically, the $50 plan is not a monthly pay. Is not a monthly thing. That's a one-time
That's a,
payment.
no. The 50 is $50 a month. PCI Compliance Essentials is just going to be a one-time payment.
And what's the price for that?
The PCI Compliance Essentials is going to be $159.
Okay. And then what does that has or have?
It has PCI 101, how to manage your scope, how to manage your report on compliance, decrypting the PCI-DSS requirements. Plus, it has the report on compliance guidebook and the scope guidebook.
Okay, so it goes from scope all the way to the end.
Well, there's four training courses in there. In the pro plan, there is 13 courses. We do requirement 1. We have 3 or 4 courses on configuration management because we've had to separate it and do some deeper dives. So there's an overview, and then there's build clean, keep clean, and then continuous compliance, which relies heavily on requirement 2. I have we have log management. We have an overview of vulnerability management, which is 5, 6, and 11. Requirement 7 is in there. What else is in there? I have a bunch of stuff on requirement 12. So I have an overview of all of requirement 12, but then I have a deep dive for third-party service providers. Plus we have all of the templates that are in the pro version. They're not in the compliance essentials. So we have all of our templates. So everything you need to make sure that you have your 12.8 through 12.8.5 requirements met, we have a complete bundled package of that. So we have other things that are in there that are packaged that way. Like for requirement 1, we also have a cheat sheet of common secure protocols and common insecure protocols. With logging, we have the logging event IDs in Microsoft and Unix. Like if you can create your own queries off of, say, Splunk, you can use these event ID codes and create your own queries so that you can get the reports for 12.2.x, all of the logging requirements that you need. So we have all kinds of things like that in the pro version.
All right, guys. Well, she put her website there, guys. Feel free to chat right to the Peggy. Any other high-level questions? Rocky, Peggy.
Welcome.
Oh,
All right, guys.
You so much, Miss Peggy.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
thank you, Peggy. We'll talk soon. Take care.
Yes.
Bye-bye.